The junkyard stretched as far as the eye could see. Broken ships lay in twisted shapes, their metal bones rusting under two burning suns. The air was hot and heavy, filled with dust, the smell of oil, and the sound of old machines groaning in. The wind, it was a place forgotten by both humans and aliens, a place where no one wanted to live. In the center of the junkyard lay a young alien woman. Her skin once glowed with bright silver tones, but now it was pale and cracked. Her eyes, half closed, glowing faintly. Her breath weak and slow. She could not move her legs, nor lift her body. She was paralyzed. Her family had carried her here many days ago and left her. They believed she was useless, broken, and a burden. They did not even say goodbye. They turned their backs and left her among the ruins. And so she lay there under the burning suns. Waiting for death or a miracle. Each day felt longer than the last. She watched the sky change from blue to red to black. At night, the stars mocked her with their freedom. She whispered to herself, "Why did they leave me? I still breathe, I still think, I still dream," but no one answered. Only silence and the cry of broken machines. Then, one day, the silence broke. Heavy boots pressed against the sand and metal. A shadow moved between the wrecked ships. It was a man, a human. His clothes were torn, his skin covered in dust, and his eyes sharp like a hunter. He walked slowly, searching for scraps of metal he could sell. He thought he was alone in this wasteland. The woman saw him first. Her heart beat faster, hope mixing with fear. Was he friend or foe? She wanted to call out, but her voice was weak. Only a faint whisper escaped her lips. "Help." The man froze. His hand went to his weapon, a small rusted blaster at his belt. He looked around, his eyes narrowing. Again the weak sound reached him. "Help. Please." He followed the sound and soon found her lying between two broken wheels. For a moment, he thought she was already dead. But then he saw her eyes, strange, glowing, alive. She looked at him, not with fear, but with quiet desperation. She was not human, but something about her gaze felt human enough. Something about it touched him. He stepped closer, studying her carefully. Her body was thin, her movements almost none. He saw the dirt on her skin, the cracks, the weakness. And he thought she was abandoned here like the rest of this junk. The man's heart hardened. He turned his head, thinking he should leave. This was not his problem. He needed food, water, and money, not another mouth to feed. But as he took a step back, her voice broke through again. "Please, don't leave me. I don't want to die here." Those words struck him like a blade. He had heard them before, long ago. His mind flashed with memory. His own family had once left him in the ashes of war. He remembered lying in rubble, thinking no one would save him, until someone had. Until a stranger had offered him a hand. That was the only reason he still lived. He looked at her again. Her glowing eyes seemed to hold not just pain, but a secret. Something deep, something hidden. This was not just a broken body in the junkyard. This was a story waiting to unfold. The man knelt beside her. He touched her wrist gently. Feeling a weak pulse? "Yes, you're alive," he whispered. Though he didn't know why, her lips moved again. "They left me. My family left me. I can't move." For a long time, he stayed silent. The suns burned above them. Machines groaned in the distance. Finally, he said, "Why should I help you? I don't even know what you are." Her eyes closed halfway. With what little strength she had, she answered, "Because you are the only one here. And because I don't deserve to die alone." Those words hit him harder than any weapon. The junkyard suddenly felt too quiet, too empty. He looked around at the endless piles of scrap. He imagined her lying here until the sand buried her completely. The thought made his chest heavy. The man stood and turned as if to leave. But his feet would not move far. Something inside pulled him back. Something called humanity. He bent down again, sliding his arms beneath her frail body. She was lighter than he expected, fragile like glass. She gasped softly as he lifted her. Her head rested against his chest, her glowing eyes blinking up at him. For the first time in days, her heart felt a spark of hope. He carried her out of the shadow of broken machines, step by step through the hot sand. And in that moment, though neither of them knew it, the fate of two worlds began to change. The junkyard had been a place of death and endings, but now it became the place of a beginning. A man and an alien woman, strangers, now tied by chance and choice. One had been abandoned, and the other had found her. And together, their story had just begun. The man's arms ached as he carried the alien woman across the junkyard. The heat pressed down on him, and sweat dripped into his eyes. He told himself again and again, I should leave her. She was not his problem. She was not his kind, yet each time he thought of dropping her, his grip only tightened. He laid her gently in the shade of a broken ship hull. Her chest rose and fell weakly, her glowing eyes watching him with silent fear. For a long time neither spoke. Only the sound of wind and metal filled the air. Finally, the man spoke, his voice rough like sandpaper. Why did they abandon you? Families don't just leave someone behind. The woman blinked slowly, her lips trembling. They feared me, she whispered, her voice fragile. They said I was broken, useless. Cursed, her eyes glistened with faint tears that caught the light of the sun's. They wanted to forget me, so they left me here with the scrap. The man's jaw tightened. He looked at her thin frame, the scars across her arms. Something inside him twisted anger, pity, and something else he could not name. But survival spoke louder in his head. He had little food, little water, no safe place to rest. A paralyzed alien woman would only slow him down. If the hunters came, if raiders appeared, she would be a danger. His mind screamed, leave her, save yourself. He stood, brushing dust from his hands. I can't, he muttered, almost to himself. I can't carry dead weight. You'll only get me killed. The woman's eyes widened, a sharp sting in her chest. She tried to move, but her body refused. Her voice shook as she begged, please, don't go. I don't want to die alone. Those words echoed in his mind. Like a ghost, he turned his back, taking a few steps away. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her weak voice followed him. You're human. Aren't you supposed to be different? He stopped, his shoulders tense. Different. That word cut deeper than a blade. He remembered the war again, how humans had been called weak by stronger species. How he had been left in the rubble by his own kind, and how one stranger's kindness had saved him. That single choice had given him a second life, and now here he was, ready to abandon someone else. The man cursed under his breath, spinning back around. You don't know what you're asking, he snapped, though his anger was not at her, but at himself. You're not human, and I don't know who you are, but if I take you with me, everything changes. The alien woman's eyes softened. Then let it change, she whispered. Her words were not desperate now, but calm. Almost certain, he studied her carefully. Her face, though alien, carried a strange beauty. Her glowing eyes seemed to hold secrets, like deep wells of starlight. And for the first time, he realized something. She was not weak. Not truly. She was surviving despite everything, despite the pain and betrayal. With a heavy sigh, he knelt again beside her. You're lucky I'm not as heartless as your family, he said, forcing a rough smile. But if I help you, you'll need to trust me completely. Understand? Her lips curved into the faintest smile. I already do, she whispered. It was such a small answer, but it felt enormous in his chest. He lifted her once more, her fragile body light against his arms. This time he did not hesitate. step by step. He carried her toward the edge of the junkyard where his small camp waited. A tent made from ship sails, a fire pit, and scraps of supplies, not much, but safer than the open ground. As he laid her down on a bed of cloth, she sighed with relief. The man knelt beside her, checking her condition. He pulled a small flask of water and held it to her lips. She drank slowly, each drop giving her strength. "Thank you," she whispered. The man didn't reply, but his silence spoke enough that night. As the sun set and the stars rose, he sat beside the fire, watching her sleep, but his mind was restless. Who was she really? Why did her family fear her? Why did her eyes glow with that strange light? He had made his decision, yes, but deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. He was no longer just a scavenger. No longer just a survivor. By saving her, he had stepped into something larger, something dangerous, something that might change not just his life, but the fate of two species. As the fire crackled and shadows danced across the junkyard, the man whispered to himself, "Let's see where this road leads." And in the silence, though she slept, the alien woman's lips curved faintly, as if she had already known the answer, as if fate had been waiting for this moment all along. The night in the junkyard was quiet. The fire burned low, and the stars stretched endlessly above. The man sat awake, listening to the soft crackle of the flames, his eyes drifting often to the alien woman. She slept in silence, her breathing uneven but steady, her silver skin faintly glowing under the starlight. For a while, he thought maybe she was only a victim, nothing more, but deep in his heart he felt there was something hidden about her. Something her family feared, something she carried inside. When dawn came, the woman stirred. Her glowing eyes opened slowly, and she whispered, "You stayed." The man grunted, pretending it was no big thing. "I said I'd help you, didn't I?" She studied him for a long moment, her gaze sharp despite her weak body. "You're different from the others," she said softly. The man shook his head. "Different?" "No, just stubborn." But before he could say more, he noticed strange marks on her arms, lines and curves carved into her skin. Glowing faintly like living tattoos, he frowned, leaning closer. "What are these?" Face turned away, as if ashamed. "They are not marks," she said quietly. "They are codes." The man blinked, confused. "Codes? For what?" Her eyes met his, glowing brighter now. "They are a key," she whispered. "A key to something old. Something my people wanted to keep hidden." The man felt a chill crawl down his spine. "What kind of key?" he asked. "But..." She closed her eyes, her body trembling. "If I tell you, you may not want to help me anymore." His jaw tightened. "I already made my choice. I didn't carry you out of the dirt just to throw you back." Her eyes softened at his words, for the first time since she had been abandoned. She felt safe enough to speak. She drew a shaky breath. "My family did not leave me, only because I was paralyzed," she said slowly. "They left me because they were afraid of what I carried." Her fingers twitched weakly, tracing the glowing symbols on her skin. "This code is from the first builders. The oldest race of my world. It is knowledge. Power, too dangerous for one family to control." The man leaned back, the firelight dancing across his tired face. He had heard rumors of the first builders before, whispers of ancient technology, hidden across the stars. But never had he thought he would meet someone carrying it in her very skin. "So your family abandoned you," he said, "because they feared you?" She nodded slowly, her voice breaking. "They feared me. Or maybe they feared what others would do to them if they kept me alive." Silence fell between them, heavy as stone. The man's mind raced. If what she said was true, then she was not just a dying alien in a junkyard. She was a treasure, a secret, and a danger, and if others knew about her, they would come. Hunters, raiders, maybe even armies. He rubbed his face, cursing under his breath. You weren't kidding when you said everything would change. The woman's eyes closed halfway, her voice soft but firm. I didn't ask you to carry this burden, but now you are part of it. For a long moment, the man said nothing. He stared at the symbols glowing faintly on her skin. He thought of selling her, turning her over to the highest bidder. It would mean food, water, and safety for life. But even as the thought formed, he felt sick inside, because deep down, he knew he could not betray her. All right, he muttered at last. If this code is so dangerous, then we keep it hidden. No one needs to know. Her lips curved faintly, almost a smile. You would risk yourself for me, a stranger. He looked away, staring into the fire. Maybe I don't like seeing people left behind. Maybe I'm tired of this world throwing the broken ones into the dirt. His voice hardened. Or maybe I just don't want to be like your family. The alien woman's heart ached at his words. No one had ever spoken for her like that, for the first time in many days. Hope stirred within her chest, but even as she felt it, the junkyard shifted with danger. The sound of engines roared in the distance, the ground trembling beneath the weight of machines. The man stood quickly, his hand reaching for his weapon. His eyes narrowed at the horizon where dark shapes moved closer. They've come, the woman whispered, her voice heavy with fear. Who? The man asked sharply. My family sent them, she answered, her eyes glowing brighter in the rising sun. They don't want me alive. And now they know I am not dead. The man cursed under his breath. So it was true, she was not just abandoned, she was hunted, and now they were coming for both of them. He tightened his grip on the weapon, his jaw set. Then let them come, he growled. If they want you, they'll have to go through me first. The alien woman's eyes widened. For the first time in her life, she felt what trust truly meant. She whispered softly, almost to herself, maybe humans are different after all. The roar of engines grew louder. Dust rose in the distance. Shadows of hunters drawing near. The man stood tall. The firelight fading behind him, the dawn rising. Before him, he had made his decision, and there was no turning back. The roar of engines grew louder as the junkyard trembled under heavy wheels. The man crouched low beside the alien woman, his weapon clutched tight in his hands. Dust clouds rose on the horizon, carrying the shadows of machines. They were not simple scavengers, they were hunters. Their engines carried power. Their shapes too sharp, too organized. The alien woman's breath quickened. Her glowing eyes flickered with fear. They found me, she whispered. I told you. They would come. The man's jaw tightened. He glanced down at her fragile form lying on the cloth bed. She could not run, she could not fight. That left only him. His heart pounded in his chest, but his voice was steady. Stay quiet. No matter what you hear, don't make a sound. He grabbed a broken sheet of metal and dragged it over her. The wreckage hid her glowing body, only her faint breath slipping through the cracks. She wanted to protest, but she saw the fire in his eyes. This human was ready to stand alone. The engines cut out, the air grew still. Then came the footsteps, heavy, echoing across the junkyard floor. Voices followed, deep and sharp. Speaking in the alien tongue, the man did not understand the words, but the anger in them was clear. He pressed his back against the broken hull of a ship, peering through a gap. 4 figures stepped into the junkyard clearing, tall, armored, their skin marked with the same glowing symbols as the woman. But unlike her, their eyes held no kindness. Only cold duty. One of them kicked aside a pile of metal. She must be here. The leader growled in their tongue. Her trail ends in this place. She cannot move on her own. Find her. The man's stomach clenched. They were not guessing. They knew. It was only a matter of time before they tore the junkyard apart. He looked back at the woman, hidden under the wreckage. Her wide eyes watched him through a crack. Fear and guilt burned in her gaze. This was her curse. Anyone near her would suffer. The man raised his weapon. It was old, a rusted blaster barely holding charge. But it was all he had. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the choice. If he fought, they would kill him. If he ran, she would die. If he hid, they would still find her. For a moment, he remembered his old life, the war, the betrayal. The time he was left to die, he remembered lying in rubble, waiting for mercy that never came, and he remembered the stranger who had saved him. The choice that stranger made was the reason he still breathed. Now it was his turn. He stepped out from behind the shipwreck, looking for someone. He shouted, his voice sharp in the silence. The hunters froze, their glowing eyes locking on him. The leader stepped forward, armor shining in the rising sun. A human, the leader hissed. This is no concern of your kind. Leave, and you may live. The man tightened his grip on the blaster. I can't do that, he said flatly, because she's with me now. A hush fell over the junkyard. The hunter's eyes flared with anger. You dare claim her? The leader growled. She carries a code that does not belong to you. Hand her over, human, or we will tear you apart. The man raised the weapon, his finger brushing the trigger. You'll have to try, he muttered. The hunters moved fast, their boots pounding the ground. The man fired, a burst of light striking the nearest one. The shot tore through armor, sending the hunter stumbling, but the others kept coming. Roaring with fury, he ducked behind a broken engine, shots of energy striking metal and spraying sparks. The junkyard lit with chaos, smoke, and fire filling the man's blaster overheated quickly, but he didn't stop. He fired again, forcing them to scatter from her hiding place. The alien woman watched with tears in her eyes, her heart twisted with guilt. She had brought this danger upon him. She whispered to herself, why does he fight for me? The hunters regrouped, their leader raising a hand. Energy surged from his palm, glowing symbols lighting across his skin. With a roar, he unleashed a blast that tore through the junkyard. Metal exploded, dust filled the air. The man was thrown back, his body slamming into the dirt. His chest heaved with pain, blood trickling down his arm. But even as his body screamed, he pushed himself up. He spat blood, raised the blaster again, and growled, you'll have to kill me before I let you take her. The hunters laughed, cruel and sharp. Then that is exactly what we will do. The leader sneered. They closed in, their weapons glowing, ready to end him. But just then, a low hum filled the air. The wreckage around the woman began to tremble. Her glowing eyes burned brighter, the symbols on her skin pulsing. Though she could not move her body, her mind reached deep into the junkyard, awakening something ancient buried beneath the ruins. The ground shook as broken machines stirred. Engines roared back to life. Lights flickered across forgotten metal. The hunters froze, staring in shock. The woman's voice rang out, clear and powerful, you will not take me. From the wreckage, old war machines rose, towering shapes covered in rust, but alive once more. The man looked back, wide-eyed. She had summoned them. Her code was not just knowledge, it was power. The hunters hesitated, their arrogance fading into fear. And in that moment, the man found his strength again. He raised his blaster, his voice steady and fierce. You heard her, he growled. She's not yours anymore. The battle was far from over. But for the first time, the hunters realized they were not facing a weak woman and a broken man. They were facing something far greater, a human who refused to abandon, and an alien who carried the power of ages. And in the heart of the junkyard, their war had only just begun. The junkyard lay in silence once more. Smoke curled from shattered metal. The air heavy with the stench of burnt engines. The hunters were gone, their bodies broken among the wreckage. But the danger they brought still lingered in the man's chest. He lowered his rusted blaster, breathing hard, his hands shaking from exhaustion. Blood dripped from a wound on his shoulder, and his legs trembled beneath him. He turned slowly toward the alien woman. She lay half buried in the broken cloth where he had hidden her. Her glowing eyes wide and bright. The symbols on her skin still pulsed faintly with light. Fading now as the machines she awakened fell silent again. The great hulks of metal stood frozen in the junkyard, lifeless once more. It was as if they had risen for her alone to protect her in her moment of need. The man staggered toward her, falling to one knee. "You?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "That was you. You woke them." Her lips trembled, her voice soft. "I didn't mean to. It just happened. The code." It answered me. Tears welled in her glowing eyes. Not of weakness, but of fear. "Now you see why they left me. Why they called me. Cursed. I cannot control it." The man shook his head, his hand pressing against his bleeding shoulder. "No. That wasn't a curse," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the pain. "That was power. And without it, we'd both be dead." Her eyes searched his face. "Confused power. No one has ever called it that." He gave a short, rough laugh, bitter and tired. "That's because they were afraid. Afraid of what they couldn't understand. Afraid of you." The woman blinked, her heart tightening at his words. For the first time, someone did not look at her like a burden. For the first time, someone saw her as something more. She whispered, "Why do you protect me? You could have left me there, like the others. Why risk your life?" The man fell silent for a moment. His gaze drifted to the stars above, his jaw tense. "Because once, I was left behind too," he said finally, his voice low and rough. "I know what it feels like to be abandoned, to be nothing in the eyes of those who should have cared. And I swore if I ever had the chance, I wouldn't let it happen to someone else." The woman's breath caught. She stared at him, her chest aching with emotions she could not name. Her glowing eyes softened, and her voice came out like a whisper. "Then you are not like them. You are not like my family." He looked back at her, a faint, tired smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "No, I'm not like them. I know. Neither are you." Silence stretched between them. But it was not the heavy silence of despair. It was something gentler, warmer, something fragile and new, a bond beginning to form. Built on pain, on choice, on survival. The man leaned closer, examining the glowing marks on her arms. "Do they hurt you?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "No. They are a part of me, like veins, but carrying knowledge instead of blood." Her eyes lowered. "But they make me dangerous. To everyone." He reached out, his calloused fingers brushing lightly across one of the glowing lines. It shimmered faintly under his touch. "You're not dangerous to me," he said, his voice steady. "You're alive. That's what matters." Her heart raced at his words. She wanted to believe them, to believe that someone could see her, not as a curse, but as a person, for the first time. She allowed herself to hope. The night grew colder, and the fire flickered weakly. The man tore strips of cloth from his shirt. Binding the wound on his shoulder, she watched him carefully, her voice trembling. "You're hurt." "Because of me," he shrugged, forcing a grin. "I've been hurt for worse reasons. At least this time it was worth it." She smiled faintly, her glowing eyes soft. "You're strange, human." "Strange, but kind," he chuckled, shaking his head. "Kind. Not what most people call me, but I'll take it." As the stars wheeled overhead, the junkyard seemed quieter than before. For the first time since her family abandoned her, the alien woman did not feel alone, and for the first time in many years, The man felt something stir inside him, something he thought he had lost long ago. Trust. He lay beside the fire, his weapon close at hand, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. But even as he drifted toward sleep, he kept glancing at her, making sure she still breathed. And she, too, watched him in silence, comforted by his presence. Though her body was broken, her spirit felt lighter. Together, they had survived what should have killed them both. But beyond the junkyard, in the vast night, signals moved across the stars. Hunters were not the only. One searching something greater, something darker, had noticed her power, and soon. The bond between a human and an alien woman would be tested more than either could imagine. For now, though, they had each other, and in the ruins of broken machines, two broken souls found strength, not in blood, not in code, but in trust. The junkyard was quiet for 2 days after the battle. The man and the alien woman stayed hidden among the broken ships. He hunted for scraps of food, fetched water from rusted pipes, and kept watch at night. She rested, her strength slowly returning. Though her body still refused to move, each day her glowing eyes grew brighter, but so did the shadows of fear inside her. She knew the hunters had only been the beginning. If her family had sent them, others would follow, and if others followed, they would bring armies. The coat in her skin was not safe, not for her, not for him, not for anyone. On the third night, as the fire crackled low, she whispered, "You should leave me." The man raised an eyebrow, chewing on dried roots. He had found, "Leave you? After everything we just went through." Her voice trembled. "Yes. If you stay with me, they'll find you too. You will die because of me," the man snorted, tossing the root aside. "I already almost died because of you," he said flatly, then leaned forward, his eyes sharp, "and I'll probably almost die again. But guess what? I'm still here." Her eyes widened, surprised by the fierceness in his voice. He softened slightly, adding, "You think you're cursed? I think you're the reason I'm still breathing." "That sounds more like fate than doom to me." Before she could answer, the night cracked open with a sharp sound. A flare shot across the sky, burning green. The man's head snapped up, his body tensing. "That wasn't a star," he muttered. He grabbed his weapon and pushed the fire out with his boot. Darkness swallowed them. The woman's glowing eyes darted nervously. "What does it mean?" The man's voice was low and grim. "It means someone marked this place. We've been found." Moments later, the ground shook with the rumble of heavy boots. Voices echoed in the junkyard, not the harsh alien tongue this time, but human. Voices, the man cursed under his breath. "Scavenger gangs," he said. "And they're worse than hunters." Figures moved between the wrecks, carrying torches and blades, their laughter sharp and cruel. They were human raiders, men who lived off blood and fear. And they had come hunting for prey. The man crouched low, pressing a hand to the woman's shoulder. "Don't make a sound," he whispered. But her glowing eyes were hard to hide, shining faintly through the darkness. The raiders spotted the light, and their leader grinned. Well, looks like the junkyard has gifts for us tonight." The man stood quickly, his blaster raised. "Back off," he shouted. The raiders laughed, their voices mocking, a lone scavenger with a broken toy. "You can't stop us." The leader stepped closer, his eyes catching the glow of the alien woman beneath the cloth. His grin widened, greedy and cruel. "She's not human, is she? Alien flesh always sells for a high price. We'll take her." The man's heart pounded. He fired his blaster, the shot striking the ground near their feet. "Come closer, and you'll regret it," he growled. But before he could fire again, a heavy blow struck his back. Another raider had come from behind, slamming a club into his spine. The man fell to the dirt, his weapon clattering away. Pain shot through him as rough hands dragged him up. The woman cried out, her voice breaking. "Stop. Leave him." But her plea only made the raiders laugh harder. The leader knelt beside her, brushing dirt from her glowing skin. "Beautiful and valuable," he sneered. "You'll fetch a fine price in the markets of the stars." She turned, her head away, shame and fury burning in her chest. The man struggled, kicking against his captors. "Don't touch her," he roared, but another strike silenced him. His body collapsing under the weight of blows, blood trickled down his face, his vision blurring. Through the haze he saw her eyes, wide and shining with tears. She whispered his name the first time. She had spoken it since learning it, and the sound gave him strength even in chains. The raiders bound him to a rusted pole. They surrounded her, preparing to lift her onto a cart, but the woman's body trembled, her skin glowing brighter. The symbols across her arms and chest flared like fire. The raiders stumbled back, shielding their eyes. "What is this?" one shouted, fear cutting through their laughter. Her voice rose, no longer weak, but sharp and commanding. "You will not take him from me." The junkyard stirred, machines groaning, gears grinding. From the shadows, broken engines rattled. To life, scrap metal lifted into the air, twisting into sharp spears. The raiders panicked, their leader shouting, "Kill her," before but he never finished. A wave of energy exploded from her, sending the raiders flying across the sand. The machines rumbled louder, their eyes glowing with stolen light. The man blinked through the chaos, awe filling his chest. Even in her broken body, she had power. Beyond imagining, the raiders fled, their screams echoing into the night. Those who survived did not look back. The junkyard fell silent again, the machines settling into lifelessness as her glow dimmed. The man collapsed, breathing hard, his body bruised and bleeding. She lay in the dirt, her eyes dim, her strength nearly gone. He crawled toward her, pulling her into his arms. You saved me," he whispered. Her lips curved faintly, her voice barely a breath, "as you saved me." Her eyes closed, but not in despair this time. She closed them in trust, knowing he would not leave her. The man looked out across the junkyard, his jaw set. It was no longer about scavenging, no longer about survival. The raiders would tell others what they saw. More hunters would come. More danger would follow. The bond between them was no longer just choice. It was destiny, and the rising threat would test it until the end. The junkyard was quiet again, but it was not peace. The silence after the raiders' screams felt heavy. The man sat on the ground with the alien woman in his arms, his own body bruised and bleeding. Her glowing eyes flickered faintly, her strength fading with every breath. He brushed dirt from her face, his voice low and rough. "You can't keep burning yourself like this." She opened her eyes halfway, her lips trembling. "I had no choice," she whispered. "If they had taken you, I would have been truly alone." The man's chest tightened at her words. He remembered the moment she had unleashed her power, machines rising like soldiers, energy tearing through the air. It was not weakness that defined her, it was a strength. Even she feared, but strength had its price. Her body shook with exhaustion, her glow dimming. He held her tighter, whispering, "You're not alone anymore." "Not while I'm breathing." Hours passed as the suns rose again. The man built a small shelter from the wreckage. Laying her inside on cloth, he tended her wounds with what little he had. Though she needed more than bandages and water, he knew. It in his gut, her power was killing her slowly. If he did nothing, she would fade away that night. As the stars returned, she spoke again, her voice soft, almost broken. "Why do you stay? You could walk away now and live. No one would follow you if I was gone." He stared into the fire, the flames dancing across his scarred face. "I've already told you," he said quietly. "I was left behind once too. I swore I'd never do that to anyone else." He looked At her then, his eyes steady. "You're worth saving. No matter what it costs." Her glowing eyes shimmered, tears slipping down her pale skin. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever chosen her when it meant danger. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. But as the warmth of trust grew between them, a shadow moved across the stars. A low hum filled the sky. Deeper than thunder, the man looked up sharply, his hand going to his blaster. Above them, a massive ship drifted into view, its lights glowing like a predator's eyes. It was no raider ship, no scavenger craft. It was sleek, powerful, and alien. The woman's breath caught. Her voice shook as she whispered, "They found me. Not hunters, not raiders. Something worse." The ship's engines roared. Beams of light cutting through the junkyard, voices echoed through hidden speakers, commanding, "Deliver the carrier of the code. Resistance will be met with death." The man's blood ran cold. He pulled her close, whispering urgently, "Who are they?" Her lips trembled. "They are the enforcers. Guardians of my people's empire. They exist to protect the code. By destroying anyone unworthy to hold it." The ground shook as heavy pods dropped from the ship, slamming into the sand. From each pod emerged armored figures taller than men, their eyes burning with cold light. This was not a gang, not a hunting party. This was an army. The man's heart pounded. He had fought before, but never against something like this. He looked at her, frail in his arms, and knew he had no chance alone. But he also knew one truth: if they took her, they would not stop. They would strip the code from her skin, and then they would come for him, for all humans, for anyone in their path. The woman reached for his hand, her fingers weak but steady. "You can't fight them," she whispered. "If they take me, they will leave you alive. Go, please." He gripped her hand tightly, his voice fierce. "No. If they take you, then everything we've been through means nothing." His eyes burned with fire as he pulled her closer. "I didn't save you to lose you now. We fight together." Her glowing eyes widened, her lips trembling with emotion. "You would die for me." He shook his head, a rough smile on his face. "No, I'll live for you." And that's worse news for them. The enforcers marched closer, their weapons glowing, their voices echoing commands. The junkyard shook with each step, metal rattling in fear. The man stood tall. Holding the alien woman against his chest, she closed her eyes. And once again the symbols across her body lit like fire. This time the glow was brighter than ever before. The machines around them stirred. But not just the small ones. Deep beneath the junkyard, something older, something larger, awakened. The ground split as a colossal machine rose, its eyes blazing, its voice rumbling like thunder. The enforcers stopped, staring in shock. The man looked at her, awe in his eyes. "What did you just call?" Her voice was faint, but steady. "The first Builder's Guardian." The last weapon they left behind. The massive machine turned its head, focusing on the enforcers. For the first time, they hesitated. The balance of power shifted. The battle had not even begun. Yet already, the junkyard felt alive with war. The man raised his blaster, standing beside her glowing form. Together, human and alien, broken yet unyielding. And as the enforcers prepared their assault, one truth burned brighter than the suns above. They were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for a future. The woman whispered softly, almost like a promise. "We are not abandoned anymore." And above them, the ship sent out a signal into deep space, carried across the stars. A message that would awaken others, who now knew she lived. The true war was only beginning.